A funny quick story I need to share before I start this review is, as me and my partner finished watching Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, this lovely older lady approached us and asked us if we were going to go see Little Mermaid. So, I mentioned that I'd already seen it and I hadn't as of yet. But anyway, we got talking. And later on down the line, she then was saying about, I just got out of Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So she was in basically the same show as us, I believe. And we were like, oh yeah, well, we just watched it too. And she's like, wow, that movie was terrible. Fast X was better than Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. The question is, however, do I agree with that statement? Well, let's find out. Hey everyone, what's going on? Welcome to the channel and thank you so much for taking your own time out to check out this review, whether you're new or returning to the channel once again. And this movie, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, is the sequel to Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And of course the voice cast returns here of like Shameik Moore, Hailee Steinfeld, Tyree Henry, Jake Johnson and so many more. And essentially it tells the plot of and follows along of the story of Into the Spider-Verse, where Miles is now, a little bit later in life, like grown up, a little bit time has passed by, but there's a new villain in town called the Spot, and he has got to stop this villain, as the villain intends to kill Miles' loved one. I rewatched Into the Spider-Verse literally just yesterday as I'm recording this review, so just one day ago, I actually rewatched it. I want to have it a little bit fresh on my mind going into this movie, and what I can only say is, after checking out this movie, is I could say I really enjoyed it. I could say there's definitely some big positives here, but there is some negatives that I think hold this movie back from reaching its true potential. So let's go into a couple of those quick positives straight away. The voice cast, once again, is done really well here. You definitely get more time to shine with Hailee Steinfeld of Spider-Gwen. Of course, Miles is likable as ever, and the voice cast of Shameik Moore also does a great job for Miles. And of course, it just kind of goes into more about kind of friendship, relationships, family, also with him about making decisions and him, making decisions in his own life and having that kind of extra responsibility now, the fact that he is a little bit older. The animation, once again, is awesome as it's done in the first movie. Of course, it's just upped that little bit extra notch here, so the animation, you're gonna get a solid animated movie, which is unlike anything you've kind of seen before. And I'm gonna be honest, I can't really describe that animation style that they use, but it's certainly unique and it's identified in its own right. And I also will say that the additional new voice cast here, especially as Oscar Isaac as Miguel O Hara, I really enjoyed that character, and I also really appreciate kind of the darker themes and tones throughout this movie. I think that they're done well. It's explored a little bit differently. At least it's a different story compared to the first one. It's not just like a rinse and repeat cycle that we're going through once again. This movie is just entertaining as hell. Yeah, you definitely can get some popcorn, some snacks, and you're just going to enjoy the movie for what it is. The soundtrack that accompanies it as well, I think, is also done good. Not as good as the first movie, but it's still done well. And of course, with this being a two-part movie, of course, I think it's around 2 hours and 20 minutes, 2 hours and 24 minutes, something along those lines. The movie itself is given that time to expand the story and give its explanation as to this kind of big story and set up as we're going to lean into a part 2. So definitely some positives we had in it, and I had a good time, especially as I've never read any of the comics, so this to me is just my interpretation of me watching the movie. But going into those negatives before I wrap up my thoughts is our main villain. Now, our main villain here is called the Spot. It does tie into the Spider-Verse, and I think the villain was done actually really well, because the first kind of 30-45 minutes here is just like kind of just kickstart, foot in the pedal, and it is just non-stop action, which I really enjoyed. It entertaining sequences one after another, and it builds that villain of the Spot, and you're really intrigued in like his story and kind of where they're going to lead with that. However, after that first 40 minutes or so, and bear in mind, as mentioned before, this is like a 2 hour and 20 minute movie, he disappears. He's just not on screen. And I'm just like, he's meant to be this villain that throughout is like, Spider-Man, I'm not going to be the villain of the week. I'm going to be the main villain, you're going to remember me. And yeah, we do for the first 40 minutes, and then he just disappears. And, of course, as shown in the trailer, a lot of focus is on Miguel O Hara. And I'm just like, well, where the hell's he gone? I mean, I was interested in this guy's story, and yet we're getting like a different story that is somewhat entertaining, but not as entertaining as that was. And I just felt like that was a big missed opportunity. And don't get me wrong, I'm sure in part 2 it'll definitely have, you know, more kind of presence of villains, so to say. But it was just a big miss, especially as this is like a part 1, and especially if you say compare this to like an Avengers Infinity War, which I know, you know, it's live action combat animation, but that Infinity War first part was a huge focus on Thanos and made you care about that villain, so when it came to the second one you cared more about them, whereas this one relegates our villain from the first 40 minutes and just until right basically at the end, that's when you basically see this villain again. And I just feel like it was a huge wasted missed opportunity. And then there's also one other negative here that my partner did point out, and I did agree with after I thought, like, you know, looking back on the movie a little bit more, but she definitely did point it out, and that is kind of with the pacing of this movie. I have heard others saying that they wish that this was longer and this is like a perfect animation movie, and I completely respect that. I think the issue is, for me though, there's some elements here of the family stuff which definitely slows the pacing right down, and I think with those moments, not to say that they're not important or integral to the story, but the way that they're done is kind of boring. I didn't care too much. I think my partner also mentioned, which I will give a shout out to my partner Emma, I think she said that this is the longest animation movie ever, which, yeah, that's a cool feat and all, and it's probably been done to kind of achieve that status, but there's definitely something here where you could have at least trimmed this by 20 minutes, taken out some of that stuff, which I didn't really feel the connection between Miles and his dad in this movie compared to the first one, and I think this would have just been more of a solid outing, and probably even better than the first movie. But as of right now, there's definitely elements in this I prefer better than the first movie, but I think overall as like just like a straightforward story narrative, the first movie is at the top for me, guys, and this one is a little bit lower, which, yeah, it's a little bit of a shame. So my overall score for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is between a 3.5 and a 4 out of 5 stars. So yeah, have you seen this movie? Are you going to go check it out? Leave any and all thoughts down below. Do you agree with me? Have I got this completely wrong? Again, let me know and let's discuss it down there in the comment section. But if you've enjoyed the review, give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel by clicking that red button down below so I can see you again on a future video. And until the next time that I see you guys, I'll be seeing you later. To see more content like this, join me over on my Patreon today. The link is down below in the description box. You get access to early videos, my release schedules, you request movies for me to check out, you get to name characters in my books, and so much more. Whilst you're also clicking that link down below, if you want to grab some t-shirts as well or some merch, go explore the shop. And I want to give a big thank you to all my awesome Patreons who help support the channel, who also have YouTube channels. Go over and subscribe to them.